Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is one of those books that changes you. And it's so much more than just a chilling memoir of his time in Nazi concentration camps. It's really a deep, psychiatric dive into a single, incredibly powerful question. How do we find a reason to live, especially when we're faced with just unimaginable suffering? The answer he found would literally change psychotherapy forever.
Frankl came across this quote from Nietzsche, and for him, it was everything. It was the absolute core of human survival. His whole idea, the central theme of the book, is that to live is to suffer. That's a given. But to survive is to find meaning in that suffering. This idea was the lifeline for people in the abyss, and it's the foundation of his entire philosophy.
So to really get what Frankl discovered, we have to go where he went. We have to try and understand the world that tested his ideas. As a prisoner in the camps, he wasn't just some detached observer of suffering. He was living it, stripped down to what he called a naked existence.
Just think about that for a second. The depersonalization was total. When they arrived, prisoners were stripped of everything. Their documents, their clothes, their possessions, even their names. They literally became a number, tattooed right onto their skin. A guard would never ask for your name, just your number. So Frankl, the respected psychiatrist, was suddenly gone. In his place was number 11-19-104, forced to dig railway tracks. His whole life just erased.
Now Frankl, the psychiatrist, couldn't help but observe the psychological journey everyone was on. He saw three distinct phases. The first was shock. That initial disbelief, that desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't be so bad. But that faded fast, and it gave way to the second phase, apathy. This was a kind of emotional death, a necessary numbing of feelings just to create a protective shell against the daily horrors. The third phase, liberation, well, that only came for the very few who survived.
And here's a really crucial point he makes. This wasn't an abnormal reaction. The apathy, the constant focus on a tiny crust of bread, the numbness to seeing death every day, that was normal behavior in a completely abnormal world. All that was left was just a bare existence, a desperate moment-to-moment fight to survive. And yet, it was right there, in that abyss, at the absolute lowest point of human existence, that Frankl made his most profound discovery. He realized there was one thing, one single thing, that could never be taken away. Picture this. He's on a freezing, brutal march, and his mind latches onto the image of his wife. He had no idea if she was even alive, but in that moment, he understood what he called the greatest secret, that the salvation of man is through love and in love. His inner life, this mental image of his loved one, became a spiritual refuge that no guard, no fence could ever touch. This is it. This is the core of his whole discovery. They could take everything from a person, but they could not take away this one last thing. The guards could control his body, his environment, his fate, but they could not control his response. That inner freedom, the power to choose your own attitude, that could never be stolen. So Frankl's experience wasn't just a story of survival. It was the fire in which he forged a whole new school of psychotherapy. He took these insights from the darkest of places and turned them into a powerful theory about what truly drives us as human beings. He called it logotherapy. It's pretty simple when you break it down. Logos is the Greek word for meaning. So, unlike other therapies, Frankl argued that our primary motivation in life isn't a search for pleasure or a quest for power, but a deep, fundamental striving to find meaning in our lives. This was a pretty big deal. His work became known as the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy. It stood right alongside Sigmund Freud, who was all about the will to pleasure, and Alfred Adler, who focused on the will to power.
Frankl basically came along and said, "You guys missed the most important one." He argued that the most fundamental human drive is our will to meaning.
Okay, so if we're all driven by this will to meaning, the next logical question is, how do we find it? Well, Frankl didn't just leave this as some abstract idea. He laid out 3 very clear paths that are available to every single one of us. All right, the first path is through action, by creating a work or doing a deed. Simple enough. The second is through connection, by experiencing the beauty of nature, or even more profoundly, by loving another person. And then there's the third path, which is maybe the most radical of all. It's the path you take when the other 2 are impossible, finding meaning by choosing our attitude towards suffering we cannot avoid. This quote nails the heart of that third path. For Frankl, suffering doesn't have to be pointless. When we absolutely cannot change our fate, our final freedom is to choose how we bear it, to turn a personal tragedy into an inner triumph.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, logotherapy isn't just a theory for therapists. It's really a philosophy for living. It's one that doesn't ignore the harsh, painful parts of life, but actually confronts them head-on. He called this philosophy tragic optimism. And it's not blind optimism, not at all. It's optimism in the face of tragedy. It's the uniquely human ability to turn suffering into an achievement, to see guilt as an opportunity to change for the better, and to view life's temporary nature as a reason to act responsibly, right now.
This all leads us to a final, crucial question. We have this amazing freedom to choose our attitude. But is freedom the ultimate goal? Is that really the last word?
For Frankl, the answer was a hard no. Freedom is only half the story. The other, equally important half is responsibility. He warned that freedom without responsibility is just randomness. It's meaningless. In fact, he famously suggested that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast should be supplemented by a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast. Because at the end of the day, it's not enough to be free from something. We have to know what we are free for. And that is the ultimate search for meaning.